It's eerily quiet now, the kind of stillness that settles in after years of noise, chaos, and laughter have left their mark. Diana's out shopping. She says it's just for groceries, but knowing her, she'll likely bring back something for the house, or maybe even a little surprise for me. That's just how she is. Thoughtful and considerate. We've been married for 24 years, and in just a month, we'll hit the milestone of 25, a quarter of a century together. That thought lands heavier than I expected. It feels like only yesterday I was nervously fumbling with a ring in my pocket, rehearsing ways to propose without making a fool of myself. And now, here we are, with 2 grown kids and an empty nest. Adrian is finishing his senior year in college, while Tessa has just started her sophomore year. The house feels strangely larger without them. Once, it buzzed with activity. Adrian's music blasting from his room, Tessa and Diana debating curfews, and the steady stream of their friends coming and going. These days, it's just Diana and me, and when she's out like this, it's only me. I decided it was time to get out of bed. Diana would probably roll her eyes if she saw me lounging like some retiree when the day had barely begun. Reaching for the bottle of vitamins on my nightstand, I popped the cap and shook out a pill, except it didn't land in my hand. Instead, it bounced off the table, hit the floor, and, naturally, rolled straight under the bed. Grumbling under my breath, I got down on my knees to retrieve it. It was darker than expected under there, carrying a faint dusty smell. I felt around blindly, fingers brushing against lint and what turned out to be an old sock, likely one of Adrian's from before he left for college. But then my fingers closed around something else, thin, crinkly, and completely out of place. When I pulled it out and saw what it was, my stomach sank. A protection wrapper. For a moment, I just sat there on the floor, staring at it like it was an artifact from another world. Confusion was my first reaction. Who could have left it there? No guests, no parties. It had just been Diana and me in the house for the last 3 months. And then, another thought crept in, one I didn't want to entertain but couldn't ignore. Diana is being unfaithful to me. Anger flared up, sharp and immediate, but I forced it down. What was I supposed to do? Confront Diana the moment she walked through the door, waving a protection wrapper as proof of infidelity? She'd deny it, maybe even twist the situation back on me. No, I needed more than this flimsy evidence before making a move. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and left the house, which suddenly felt stifling, every corner shadowed by doubt. There was only one person I trusted to help me get to the bottom of this: Mitchell Wade. He was a seasoned private investigator with a reputation for digging up the truth. When I walked into his office, he was reclining in his chair, a chipped coffee mug in hand. He greeted me with a grin and a firm handshake before motioning for me to sit. After a moment of hesitation, I laid it all out: the wrapper, my suspicions, and the gnawing feeling in my gut that refused to go away. Mitchell listened intently, his face serious as he nodded occasionally, but didn't interrupt. When I finished, he leaned back, stroking the graying stubble on his chin. "All right, Warren, I'll help you. Give me a week and I'll see what I can uncover. But before we go down this path, think carefully. If this is what you suspect, be ready. Talk to a lawyer. Understand what you're up against financially and otherwise. If this ends in divorce..." His words sent a chill down my spine, but I knew he was right. "Yeah," I said quietly, "I'll do that." Mitchell clapped a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We'll get to the truth, Warren, I promise." 2 hours later, I found myself in the office of Simon Fuller, the best divorce lawyer in town. With piercing eyes that seemed to size me up instantly, he didn't earn his reputation as a shark for nothing. After laying out my situation, I waited as he jotted down notes on a legal pad. Finally, he looked up and delivered the harsh reality. "Warren, if this goes the way you think it will, you're looking at losing half. Assets, savings, the house, everything. California's community property laws mean one thing: an even 50-50 split. Half of everything I'd worked for, everything Diana and I had built together. The thought was a gut punch, leaving me feeling hollow. But as painful as it was, one thing was clear: I couldn't stay married to someone who betrayed me. Simon seemed to sense my turmoil. Leaning forward, his voice dropped to a serious tone. "If you're really going through with this, Warren, here's what you need to do. Keep everything normal. Don't let her catch on that you're suspicious. If she even suspects you're onto her, she'll get a lawyer too, and things will get complicated fast." I nodded, absorbing the weight of his advice. "I'll do my best," I said, though it felt like an uphill battle. By the time I walked out of his office, I was emotionally drained but resolute. When I got home, Diana was in the kitchen, casually chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up and smiled at me, warm, familiar, as if nothing had changed. It was like a knife to the chest, but I forced myself to smile back. "I've got a business trip tomorrow," I said lightly, leaning against the counter. "I'll be gone for the week." Later that night, she slid into bed beside me, her hand brushing against my arm as she moved closer. Her intentions were clear in her tone. "Come on," she murmured softly, almost teasing, but I couldn't do it. "I'm tired," I muttered, my voice flat and detached. She hesitated for a moment, then sighed, rolling over to face the other side of the bed. Lying there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, my mind churned with doubt. Was I overreacting? Could the protection wrapper have been Adrian's? He had stayed in our room for a couple of nights before leaving for college while his room was being painted. Maybe it had fallen out of his pocket. But deep down, I knew I was just reaching for excuses. If I didn't face the possibility, I'd never know the truth. The next morning, I rose early, packed a small bag, and left the house quietly. Diana barely stirred as I grabbed my things and walked out, the sound of her even breathing following me as I closed the door behind me. The drive out of town was uneventful, the urban sprawl giving way to open roads and scattered buildings. The motel I checked into was just as I'd expected, cheap, unremarkable, and anonymous. It was exactly what I needed. I spent most of the day sitting in that drab room, staring at the peeling wallpaper as the hours crawled by. When evening approached, my phone buzzed. It was Mitchell. "Warren," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "Diana just left the house. She's checked into a motel." My heart skipped a beat. "Which one?" There was a brief pause before he replied, "The same one where you're staying." The words hit me like a hammer. I sat frozen on the bed, my mind reeling at the implications. When Mitchell called again, his voice was steady but firm. "She's in the room next to yours, Warren. Don't confront her. Just leave. Take a walk or drive somewhere. Don't make a scene." But I couldn't listen. "No, Mitchell," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. "I need to hear it. I need to know for sure." He sighed heavily, the frustration evident. "Fine, but don't do anything reckless. Promise me that, Warren." I muttered a vague agreement and hung up, gripping my phone tightly as I waited. Minutes felt like hours until I finally heard muffled voices through the thin walls. At first, the sounds were indiscernible, just Diana's voice and a man's deep, unfamiliar tone. Then their words became clear, and what I heard made my stomach churn. "I don't know why you're still with him," the man said, his voice dripping with disdain. "The guy's old, washed up. He can't satisfy you, can he?" Diana's response came, breathless and cutting. "No, he can't," she said without hesitation. "You're the best I've had in a long time. He's just so old now." The man laughed, a mocking, cruel sound. "Then why are you still with him?" Her reply came sharp and without pause. "I need him to keep the bills paid. Now shut up and keep doing what you're good at." I froze on the edge of the bed, every muscle tense and my breathing labored. Their laughter cut through the walls, corroding what little resolve I had left. I stood, fists clenched, ready to storm next door and end the nightmare. But before I could move, my door opened, and Mitchell stepped in, his face grim. He grabbed my arm firmly, holding me in place. "Don't!" he said sharply, his voice low but commanding. "Let me go!" I hissed, trying to pull free, but his grip tightened. "Listen to me, Warren," Mitchell said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "They left the window open. I've got my camera rolling. I'm filming everything. You'll have all the evidence you need. If you go in there now, you're the one who'll end up in jail, and that'll destroy your chances in the divorce." I glared at him, my vision blurred by rage, my breath heavy. "I don't care about the divorce," I growled, my voice thick with fury. "I want them to pay." Mitchell stepped closer, his grip firm and unyielding. "And you will," he replied with a steady resolve. "But not like this, Warren. Think. If you lose it now, you lose everything." For a moment I resisted, anger surging inside me like a storm threatening to break free. My fists clenched, my breathing uneven. But Mitchell's words hit me like a bucket of ice water, and his strength overpowered mine. Slowly the fight drained from me, replaced by an overwhelming wave of despair. I collapsed onto the bed, burying my head in my hands. I felt shattered, humiliated, powerless. The woman I had loved and trusted for over 20 years was in the next room, dismantling everything we had built together. Silence filled the space until I finally stood, my jaw tight and fists trembling. "I'll have my revenge," I said, my voice low and unwavering, each word burning with anger. "She might take my assets, but I'll destroy her, just like she destroyed my marriage and my trust." After Mitchell left, I sat alone in the dim motel room. My thoughts raced, and my body felt weighed down as if carrying a mountain of stones. The plan was simple. Stay out of sight for 3 days while Mitchell kept tabs on Diana. That was the agreement. But the solitude, knowing what she was doing, was pure agony. By the time Mitchell called that evening, I was already pacing the room, replaying her lies in my mind. His calm, measured tone barely kept me grounded. "They left the motel," he said. "I've got a positive ID on him. His name's Vincent Bowen. He's her co-worker." The name was unfamiliar, but the fact that she was with someone from her office stung deeply. Those late nights she claimed were for work now had a cruel clarity. "I'll keep watching," Mitchell added. "For now, stay put, like we planned. You don't want to make any moves until we've got everything." I muttered a faint acknowledgement before hanging up. The hours that followed were excruciating. Each tick of the clock another dagger to my already bleeding heart. The next day, Mitchell called with another update. His words were sharp and clinical, each one cutting deeper. "She's been spending time at Vincent's place," he reported. "Same routine, after work, staying late. I've got enough footage to build a case." I listened in silence, gripping the phone tightly. Then came the blow that nearly shattered me. "She's been intimate with him every day, Warren," Mitchell continued, his voice steady but tinged with hesitation. "At his house, before heading home." Later, I met with Simon and Mitchell in Simon's office. The blinds were drawn, and the faint scent of leather and coffee lingered in the air. Simon leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable, while Mitchell stood by the window, arms crossed. "So, we stick to the plan," Simon said firmly. "Warren, go home and act normal. Don't let her suspect a thing. The evidence Mitchell's gathered is strong, but the longer we play this smart, the stronger your case will be." Mitchell nodded in agreement. "Keep it cool, Warren. No confrontations, no slip-ups. Let her think everything's fine while I continue tracking her movements." I swallowed hard, the knot in my stomach tightening. "I understand," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'll handle it." "Good," Simon replied, leaning forward. "Remember, if you lose your cool, you lose your leverage." When I arrived home, Diana greeted me cheerfully, her face lighting up. "Oh, honey, I've been waiting for you," she said, stepping closer. I raised a hand, stopping her. "Wait," I said quickly. "I think I might have been exposed to COVID-19. Someone at work tested positive, and I'm not feeling great. I don't want to risk getting you sick." Concern flashed across her face. "Oh no, are you okay? Do you have symptoms?" "Just a sore throat," I lied. "But it's better if I stay in the guest room for a few days, just to be safe." She nodded, her worry appearing genuine. "Of course. Let me know if you need anything. Tea, soup, whatever. I'll take care of you." "Thanks," I replied, with a small forced smile. "I'll manage." Later, in the solitude of the guest room, my phone buzzed. Mitchell's voice came through without preamble. "She left the office during lunch. She's at Vincent's house again. Same routine. I've sent you the videos and pictures." I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat as I opened the email. The images were clear, undeniable proof of her betrayal. Diana stepping into Vincent's house, the two of them tangled together in ways that turned my stomach. My hand tightened around the phone, anger simmering beneath the surface. Finally, I broke the silence. "If I wasn't her husband," I said, my voice icy and detached, "I'd probably enjoy these videos. But now, she just makes me sick." There was a pause on Mitchell's end before he spoke again, his tone calm and measured. "I know this isn't easy, Warren, but it's only a matter of time now." 7 days in isolation felt like an eternity. The waiting gnawed at me, but I knew I had to stick to the plan. Diana remained oblivious, too wrapped up in her own little world to suspect a thing. When the time finally came for me to leave isolation, I forced myself to rejoin her with as much composure as I could muster. She was eager, almost overly so, probably hoping everything would return to how it used to be. When she tried to pull me close, I stepped back, holding up a hand. I'm still feeling weak, I said, keeping my tone steady despite the chaos inside me. I don't think I'm up for anything tonight. Her brow furrowed in concern, and her voice softened. You've been sick, Warren. You should take it easy. I will, I replied, keeping my distance. But I'm really not feeling great. The next day, I made a trip to the clinic for a full STD check. I couldn't ignore the nagging thought that I might have been exposed to something far worse than betrayal. The staff was efficient, but the weight of what the results might reveal was a heavy cloud over my thoughts. When I got home, I busied myself with preparations for the anniversary party. Invitations were sent to family, friends, anyone who mattered. The party was going ahead, and I was determined to ensure it unfolded exactly as planned. That afternoon, my kids called to confirm their attendance. Hearing their voices brought a brief flicker of warmth, but it was fleeting. Later, Diana approached me, her demeanor softer than usual. I love you, Warren, she said, her voice tender and sincere. I'm so happy to have you as my husband. I forced a small, hollow smile, the mask securely in place. I know you are, honey. A week later, the day of the anniversary celebration arrived. The house buzzed with energy, filled with voices, laughter, and the hum of conversation. Guests congratulated me, complimenting our enduring love and the beautiful years we'd shared. Diana, as always, looked radiant, her bright, innocent smile firmly in place for the crowd. She had invited several co-workers, including Vincent and his wife. I couldn't help but notice the subtle glances they exchanged, the way Diana stayed glued to my side while Vincent lingered nearby, feigning interest in small talk. My own colleagues were absent, a deliberate choice. Diana found it odd, but I had a ready excuse. They're tied up in an important meeting, I explained smoothly, leaving no room for doubt. Diana's parents arrived soon after, showering us with congratulations and kind words. I thanked them politely, masking the turmoil inside. They had no idea of the truth, the ugliness hidden behind the polished facade. Diana clung to me throughout the evening, playing her role with precision, her enthusiasm unshaken. She was determined to show everyone how perfect everything was, how perfect we were. The night was in full swing, the atmosphere brimming with cheer. But beneath the surface, I reminded myself, this was just the calm before the storm. Mitchell and Simon arrived, their presence signaling the moment I had been waiting for. Months of meticulous planning had led to this. It was time to act. I gently pulled my hand from Diana's grasp, her touch a painful reminder of all I had endured. She didn't question me, simply smiled and continued mingling, blissfully unaware of what was about to unfold. I walked to the large screen we'd installed for the occasion, and as the lights dimmed, all eyes turned to me. Standing before the crowd, I grabbed the microphone, my heart pounding like a drum, but I pushed the nerves aside and began. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, I said, my voice steady despite the fire burning inside me. You all mean so much to Diana and me. The crowd murmured in agreement, smiling warmly. I've been married to Diana for 24 years and 6 months, I continued, letting the words hang in the air. Diana's voice cut in, quiet but insistent. No, it's 25 years. I smiled, a small, knowing smile, and turned to her. I'll explain, honey. Mitchell stepped forward, holding a large, carefully wrapped gift. Mitchell, I said, gesturing toward him, please present the gift to my wife. Mitchell approached, the package in hand. Diana moved toward him, still smiling, her parents joining her as they began unwrapping the present. The room seemed to hold its breath, tension crackling like static electricity. Each second felt agonizingly slow. Then it happened. As the paper fell away and the image was revealed, the shock on Diana's face was everything I had anticipated. But even as I watched her expression crumble, it didn't make the moment any easier. The image on the screen was undeniable. Diana and Vincent in a moment that left the room in stunned, uncomfortable silence. Her father's reaction was as expected, fury and disbelief. Warren, what is the meaning of this? He bellowed, his voice trembling with anger. This is a sick joke. I met his glare, forcing calm into my voice despite the storm raging inside me. It's not a joke. That image is just a preview, a clearer screenshot of the video I'm about to play. Mitchell moved to the controls, the quiet clicks echoing ominously before the screen came alive with the video. Diana and Vincent's actions unfolded in vivid detail, the room frozen in collective disbelief. And then Diana's voice rang out, her words cutting through the tension like a knife. I'm keeping him just to keep the bills rolling. Though I'd heard those words before, they still landed like a punch to the gut. This time, though, the pain was dulled by purpose. The silence in the room grew suffocating as all eyes turned to me. Then, a man in a black suit stepped forward, his calm, purposeful movements adding a surreal weight to the moment. Without acknowledging Diana's stunned expression, he approached her and extended a manila envelope. His voice was steady and professional. "Mrs. Elliott, you have been served." Diana froze, her hand hovering over the envelope before reluctantly taking it. She didn't open it. Her eyes darted between the man and me, her expression a mix of confusion and anger. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came. The man turned without pause, walking toward Vincent, who stood rigid, his face etched with guilt and shock. The suited man handed him another envelope. "Mr. Bowen, you have been served." Vincent's eyes widened, glancing nervously at Diana, who remained paralyzed. The man continued without hesitation, striding to the CEO, Mr. Dalton. The room seemed to shrink as he approached, the air thick with tension. The envelope exchanged hands with the same practiced ease. "Mr. Dalton, you have been served," the man stated evenly before turning to leave. The CEO looked down at the envelope, his face draining of color. "What is this?" he stammered, his voice betraying a hint of panic. I locked eyes with him, my voice slow and deliberate. "That's a lawsuit for failing to enforce the company's morality code. Your employees were using company time for their personal escapades." The room remained silent, the weight of my words pressing down on everyone present. Dalton's face twisted in confusion and anger, but I didn't care. He had enabled this betrayal, whether knowingly or not. I turned to Vincent, fixing him with a cold stare. "Mr. Bowen, you've been served for alienation of affection, for breaking down my marriage." The words echoed in the room, sharp and unforgiving. My gaze then shifted to Diana. She was the one who had inflicted the deepest wound, the one who had chosen this path of destruction. "And Diana," I said, my voice hardening as I looked into her tear-filled eyes, "you've been served for divorce." Her lips trembled, her eyes wide with guilt and fear. But I wasn't done. "Our marriage lasted 24 years and 6 months, I continued, my tone unwavering. "But the truth is, it died the day you decided to betray me with this man." The bitterness of the words lingered on my tongue, but they were the truth. "From what we've uncovered, it started 6 months ago. I don't care why you did it," I said, the finality in my voice resonating throughout the room. "I don't need to know. Just get out of my house." Something shifted inside me as I uttered those words, a sense of closure. It was over. In the days that followed, chaos ensued. Diana's parents were relentless, showing up at my door or calling constantly, pleading with me to reconsider. "Warren, you don't understand," her mother said, her voice thick with worry. "Diana's going through something. You've been together for so long. You can work through this." Her father, usually quiet and reserved, was more direct. "You can't just throw away 24 years, Warren. Think about your family. Think about everything you've built together." But their pleas fell on deaf ears. I had made my decision, and nothing would change it. The betrayal was too deep, the trust shattered beyond repair. Their words, though well-meaning, were nothing more than echoes in a house already emptied of its foundations. I had given Diana more than enough chances to be honest, but she chose deceit every time. It was over. Even then, Diana tried one last excuse during the hearing. Her eyes filled with tears as she claimed, "I have a hormone imbalance, and it made me act out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, this was her justification? My lawyer, Simon, wasn't buying it either. "Miss Elliott, there are no medical records or tests to support your claim," he pointed out, his tone firm. Diana flinched, clearly caught off guard. The judge leaned forward, his expression stern. "If this issue truly existed, why didn't you communicate it to your husband or seek medical intervention?" Diana remained silent, her frustration evident. The judge's voice carried an air of finality. "Without proof, the court finds no grounds for reconciliation." The divorce was finalized after 7 months of back-and-forth legal proceedings. Though I expected it, the damage was undeniable. Adrian and Tessa, my kids, bore the brunt of the fallout. They didn't take sides, but their silence spoke volumes. They were angry at Diana for her betrayal and at me for the way I exposed her. I understood their pain. The life they knew had been torn apart. They withdrew from both of us, and as much as it hurt, I gave them the space they needed to heal. Financially, the divorce took its toll. Half of my assets were gone. Years of hard work divided down the middle. Yet, despite the loss, I couldn't regret my choices. Diana took her share, but my dignity and self-respect remained intact. Vincent wasn't spared either. His wife, represented by Simon, pursued her own divorce case. He faced the consequences of his actions as his life unraveled, just as mine had. The CEO, eager to avoid further scandal, reached out with a settlement offer. $1 million, he proposed, if you withdraw the case. I wasn't after revenge anymore. The divorce was done, and the fight had drained me. Accepting the offer felt like the best way to close this chapter. The money became a financial cushion, helping me rebuild as I moved forward. 3 years later, I sit on the porch of my modest farmhouse, watching the sun set over the rolling countryside. The air is crisp, the world quiet, and I finally feel a sense of peace. 2 German shepherds, Max and Duke, rest by my feet, their watchful eyes a comforting presence. They're more than pets. They're loyal companions who remind me I'm not alone. The farm is small, but mine. I've spent the past year embracing its rhythm, feeding chickens, repairing fences, and working the land. These simple tasks have become a source of healing, grounding me in a life far removed from the chaos of my past. Life here is vastly different from the one I left behind, but it's exactly what I needed. I've found a sense of purpose in this place, something I had been missing for far too long. It grounds me. There's a steady rhythm to life here, the animals, the land, and the seasons. I've stopped rushing through my days. Time feels slower, and I've learned to savor each moment as it comes. What's been even more unexpected is that my children, Adrian and Tessa, have started visiting me again. These were the 2 people I feared I had lost forever. Their visits haven't been without challenges. It's still a little awkward at times, but I can sense the barriers between us slowly coming down. They're older now, each navigating their own lives and struggles, but every visit, no matter how small, feels like a step forward. We talk about the farm, about life, and about lighter topics that don't carry the weight they once did. I've stopped trying to fix everything. Now, I simply focus on being here for them when they need me. As for Diana, word has reached me that she's moved back in with her parents. From what I hear, she's in therapy, working through everything that happened. I never expected her journey to be an easy one. She's grappling with her own battles, and though it surprised me, I feel a trace of empathy for her. Even after everything we've been through, it's not my responsibility anymore, but it's hard to completely shut off the part of me that once cared deeply about her. Still, I'm not bitter, nor am I angry. I've let all of that go. This quiet, peaceful life has taught me something important. Holding on to anger only keeps you tied to the past, and I refuse to live in the past any longer. I've moved forward, and for the first time in years, I feel genuinely happy. My mornings begin with the sound of birds, the rustling of the wind through the trees, and the occasional excited bark of my dogs chasing after something. Everything I need is right here. If you enjoyed this story, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our channel for more captivating tales. We can't wait to see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day and take care.